So the topic for today, as I said, the last week's or the video contents that you have seen were something like this, that you have created a form by using this one. And this is just for a repetition purpose, that if I just take out this CSS from here, or just try to make it something which is not available, style 11.css. So you remember that you just take out the CSS and your form becomes this mess. And you have implemented the CSS, and that was a very good practice of how you can just uh, you can just make few things, how to make input text area look beautiful, how to make them like in a grid fashion or something. So there are lots of things that we wanted to do, but what we are doing today, we'll be using this same form to style it with the Bootstrap. Right, okay, no problem. So we'll try to style it with the Bootstrap, and today you'll get an introduction of the Bootstrap. And as I said, most of you would start loving it, and you would just try to embed that everywhere. So this is my index file which I'm running right now. So I will keep this file as it is. So why not? Why? Because just want to have that file as well. And I will be creating another file, and let's call it, you can call it anything, right? I can call it new file, right? Just for that. Otherwise, I would have called it Bootstrap. So new file.html, right? And what I want to do is I will just copy and paste everything from this file, and I'll tell you what I don't want. So I'll just paste that over here. Okay, and what I don't want here is, now I don't want this style sheet. Maybe I don't want to delete. I don't want to delete this. So this is a new file, and its name is new file.html. And if I want to run it, I will just go here and I will run new file.html. Yep. I think you should follow. Yes, I would like you to follow. So I will be a bit slow now. I have just created another file in that folder, and I've called it new file. You can call it anything. You can call it Bootstrap. You can call it with Bootstrap, whatever. So I've just used another file, and I have just copied and pasted everything from index.html, and I have just pasted everything into this new file. Other than that, I've just taken out the style sheet from that. And why? Because I don't want the style sheet from here, and rather I want something different. Are you following me now? So now, this is not form and CSS styles. Rather, this is now forms by Bootstrap, right? So I'm just changing the heading on my page, H2. So this heading should be changed, forms by Bootstrap. Now we'll be just using the Bootstrap library to work on that, right? So now, as I said, I'm just going back to style.css. I'm just closing this one. The style.css, which we were using in the index, we have very much connected this one here. So we were using this style.css to apply all these stylings and things like that. And it is always very helpful, very powerful, because Bootstrap, one way or other, sometimes Bootstrap will not be providing you some of the things that you need to do. But rather than defining our own style sheet and doing this lots of CSS code, what HTML provides us, or what HTML5 provides us, are some pre-built libraries. So this is one of the pre-built library, which is called Bootstrap. And what is that? It's quickly designed and customized responsive mobile first sites with Bootstrap. So it will be just helping us out to design responsive mobile first sites. So these days, whenever you are designing a website, you have to keep in mind that more than now, if I safely say, more than 50% of the people, most of the times, they will be accessing your website from mobile device. So if you want to make it a bit more responsive, you need to use this library, the Bootstrap library. Now, so Bootstrap, the world's most popular front-end open source toolkit. It's a toolkit or a library featuring Sass variables and mixins, responsive grid systems, extensive rebuild components. So there are lots of interesting components that it uses, and we will be just using them and use. So I will just not download this. I'll just go to the get started, and I'll just try to do the good, the quick start something. So what I need to do is, or what I will be doing, this Bootstrap is providing us a pre-made CSS style sheet, a pre-made JS files that would be very fastly, as someone said, that very quickly they will be implementing some of the very cool effects on our website. And rather than, if I say not only website, rather if you say that this form, that you remember that we have used CSS to design that. Now I want to use this pre-built CSS from Bootstrap. So if you go to this introduction, get started, it says that get started Bootstrap, the world's most popular framework for building responsive designs. And if you see here that for quick start, first of all, it says that copy and paste this one. So I'm copying this one from here. And let me go to my document. And which document? New file.html. Please bear in mind where I've removed my CSS link, my own CSS link. Now, if you see here, it has just copied and pasted that link to me for me. Not only that, we need something else, because some of their styles, they may be used, as you see, many of our components require the use of JavaScript function. So there are certain JavaScript functions also they want us to use. For that, just copy this one from here, the bundle, right? And paste it in our document. But you remember, we usually paste our style at the end. So we need to just paste that one. If you see here, that we have got src, integrity, cross origin. So it has just given that script, right? Okay, so let me show you something interesting. Rather than running in it, I will run it. Okay. I'm running it over here. It is, what is the name? New file.html. You see here, do you see any difference? I'll just show you the difference. Let me remove that link. The CSS link that I added, I'm removing that because I want to show you the difference. So Control S, I have saved that. You see, this is my form right now, right? So this is my form. And if you see quickly, if I want to show you something very interesting, when I just add that link to CSS, which is what is that CSS? This is basically the CSS of that Bootstrap. So as I add this Bootstrap CSS, yes, okay, you can get that. Just hold on. You want to have that. Okay. But as I said, that this is okay. Anyhow, I'll just copy that. So should I copy it? I'm a new file. Should I copy it over here? Are you able to paste it from here? I don't know. Okay, I'll explain that. But first of all, if let me just share that file. Let me save it. I'm sharing this file. Okay, I'm sharing this file. No problems. Okay. Right. So someone is asking something else. I'll just come back to that, and I will definitely do that as well. No worries. Here I have used this new file. Yes, here. So you see, if you are able to access that file, let me know. And there was some other comment. Yes, I've done. Yes, that is also okay. So how to copy Bootstrap and CSS reference? Okay, I'm just telling you again. Someone is asking that. So if you see here, first of all, we have come to the getbootstrap.com. I'm replying to that. Someone asked how to copy that. So I have come here and I have come to the get started link. And in get started, I have copied this CSS from here. And I have tried to paste it over here in my here. I have just pasted the wrong, right? So I've just pasted the CSS file link here, right? I've not saved that. I have got the answer. You were asking me to copy, and then what I've done is I have pasted the JS link. This is the JS. This is the JS link, JavaScript link, the bundle. You got it? That's good. So now I have pasted this JS at the bottom over here, and the CSS link at the top. And I wanted to show you something, and that's what I'm showing you right now. If you see here that I have added this link, and now as I save this document, do you see something different? What is the difference? Can anyone tell me? As I save my document, you see something has already been changed. What is that? This CSS has started to play its effect. You see the fonts have changed. The text box have come some different different form, and But again, of course, there is no alignment and anything. But CSS has started to play its part. If you see that CSS is changed, but of course it's not responsive right now.
Excuse me.
Yes,
you still have some padding and margin.
Where?
Yeah, mine doesn't have that. That's why I'm confused.
I still have some padding and margin where?
My all the elements are
like this. You
stuck.
have this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you. So you people will be looking this like this one. Everyone looks like this, because thank you very much. You have just mentioned that, because I had that different mode.
Professor, mine looking different somehow.
What type of is that? Is it something like this or something like this?
It's like my first name, last name. It comes down, and like that tax area. It's on the. It's like it's a bigger one.
Okay. So no worries. Right now, please don't worry about it. And
okay.
What I want you to just experience is that when I just take out this one, for example, you can just experience this right now. If I take out this one and save, you see document is very different. And when I paste it back and I save, and I see a very different document, like the font is changed and things like that. But again, don't worry about the rest of the things. We'll try to settle them all later on. You can tell me if that is not good.
One other irrelevant kind of question: when you save, your href integrity and cross origin comes in line. How do you do that?
Okay, so okay, I want to just know. So right, so now if you see here that we have got this, we can see that bootstrap difference, like as long as I give this CSS, it basically just implements few different things. And again, time and again, I'm saying, that's why I just wanted to show you that if I save this one, so you see my form looks like this. But when I do something like this, my form changes a bit, and this changes into something something more cool. But then it's not that cool, of course. Okay, so now that's one thing. I am using the Firefox browser, and I would recommend you can use anyone, but the Firefox, sometimes, in most of the cases, sometimes Firefox is good, sometimes. So I'm using the Firefox browser. So if you have opened up this document and you right click, of course, go to inspect element, and if you see here, I hope you are able to see. You see here that there is something called responsive design mode. So if you click on that one, that was already clicked for me, right? So responsive design. So this is called a responsive design something, which gives us this facility to design our things according to the different view areas. For example, this has just changed something into this one. And also what you can do is that it is a responsive one. You can just try to do that, squeeze that, maybe expand that. So it will show you that how your document will look like while you are doing. So this is a responsive design. How we have come here, let me just again go back. This is the document that you people see that I was looking at, but if you go here and you click on this responsive design mode, Control Shift M, that is Control Shift M is the shortcut key. So if you click on that, you get something like this. So it's very interesting. Not only it is giving me this responsive area, also it is giving me some of the device names, and you might have different device names as well. So it's, first of all, it says Galaxy S9, S9 Plus, Android version 7, Android 7.0. If I click on it, it is showing me my Android S9 screen. Are you getting that? If I click on it, I click on iPad. iPad is different. So iPad, it is showing that your document will look like in iPad, something like this. Is that helpful?
And if you how can we get that responsive? I'm not getting it.
Okay. So are you using Firefox?
Yeah, I open in Firefox. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I'll tell you the step. So you have, okay, just hold on. Right. Okay. Let me just change that. So you have got something like this, right? Right now, something like this. So if you right click on it and go to inspect element, you will get this inspector or all those things where we have console, debugger, network, and everything.
Yeah, so I got that one.
In continuation, you see that this is a responsive web design. Responsive design mode is over there. Control Shift M is the shortcut key for that as well. You see? So you click on that. You click on. Okay, you cannot see that. So maybe if you cannot see that, you need to just You need to just make it extended and look at different options. You might find it, or otherwise you just press Control Shift M.
Okay.
If you press, I've pressed Control Shift M right now. You see that I've got this changed.
Yes, I don't know. I'm not getting it. It's okay.
Okay, if you want, yes, Brock is saying that F12 is also the inspect element. So can you do? I can just. So this is the responsive mode that we are talking about. So you can always check your document in your like different view areas, iPad, and you can see that iPhone, how it will show in iPhone, how it will show in iPad, things like that. So you have got lots of options over there. So you can just work on any one of them, and you will be able to see it for all the rest of them. And as I said, you can do that manually as well. You want to see this viewing area, and you want to work on this viewing area, that's up to you. So this all depends upon you. So let me just set it to, for example, iPhone 6, 7, or 8. I have just tried to settle that into that, right? So now let's talk about something more interesting. Now, if you see that this responsive web design, we can work a lot on that. So if you go again to the Bootstrap, so here you will find that Bootstrap has got a lots of options available. Now, there are different options that we have. They have got the option related to layouts. They have got the options related to content. They have got the option related to forms that we'll be using. And they have components where you can just drag out some of the components. For example, if you go into the buttons, so these are the buttons that you can make very easily. So there are lots of things. Button groups we have got the list groups. So you have a number of options that you have that you can always use. So the first thing that we want to use over here is that layout. I want to go into layout, and if you see breakpoints, containers, grid, column, all these options are available over here. So if I go to, for example, containers, let's try to find out how they have the containers. So you can find out that they've got something called a default container, dot container class. You know that a class always starts with a dot. So they've got something that is called dot container, which sets max width at each responsive breakpoint. So if I set something as a class container, its max width would be set up according to each responsive point. Let me show you what I mean. Let me just open that document as well. So it says that there is a container class. So if you come to the body, come here, and if you remember, I've told you another shortcut that if you just write down the name of the class container and press a tab sign, so you'll get a div by itself. I hope you remember that, or I have told you. Now Control X, I've just deleted this D, and I want to make it for whole form. So whole form is coming inside that. So if you see here that I have made a div class is equal to container. And do you find any difference in my output? Did anyone experience that difference in my output? Yes. Let me just do that again, because of course you are doing lots of things together. So I'm just taking out this div class is equal to container from this one. For the time being, I'm taking out this class container, and see the difference. I have cutted that one and save. You see, my form is stretched to the corners. There is no margining. There is no padding. There are lots of things are missing. You see here. But what if I do that div class is equal to container? And why I am doing that? Please bear in mind. Why I am doing that? Because it says that we have got a class. The Bootstrap says that we have got a class, generic class, that is container. So what I do is that I have implemented a container class on my form and everything. If you see, I've started that div from the top and taken to the end. So this div is containing everything, and I have defined a class container. So as I do that, yes, now if I save it, can everyone feel the experience the difference? Yes, please, in the chat window, if you can just respond. So that, okay, that's very good. Now you see that it has added some margin. It has done something good for me, which is not that much, but of course. Now, what about if I start changing its width and something? So if you see, but not like that. For example, if I go to iPad, you see. So you see that when I'm going to iPad, it's just showing this one. So if I take out this one from container again, if I just do that Control X again and save this, you see the difference between this iPad. So again, I don't need to do it for every other every other viewing area. What I do is that if I apply this class container and save this, Do you see that how good it looks? Again, with respect to that margining and something like that. So far, so good. Everyone is getting what I'm just trying to explain over here. Okay, that's good. That's very good. So that's good. It means that with only a single class addition, we have started to get something really cool. And let me just we can do it for any viewing area, but I'm doing it for iPhone 6, 7, right? So it means that addition of something has really changed that one. Okay, now let's talk about few other things that we can use in in our Bootstrap. So if you come here and if you come inside these forms, because we are working on forms, so it's asking about that forms have a lots of examples and users guidelines for form control styles. There are lots of form control things, sort of things that we can use. And if you come here, let me just tell you. So they have a generic class. Let me show you where they are just doing that. Okay, so for forms, if you see that it says that there is a generic class form control that we can use with all input type elements. Form control. You see, form control. What does that mean? Let's come back to that one. And I want you to just experience something. And of course, as you are just right now typing with me as well, so you might have that problem. So if I go to this input ID and I press enter, and maybe I want to add. So add. Sorry, I'm just doing it for the date first, but first we have to do it for, again, you can do it for any sequence, but here I'm doing that. Okay, so I've just already implemented. So if you see that form is equal to class control, and that is, again, if you see that class is equal to form control. So what it is doing, it will basically, let me just take that and save that document. And let me just see that, because I would have maybe I have just done that. Okay, now it's not here. So you see that this is our first input, where we have to take first input, and if I define class equal to form dash control, right? Form control. I've given this to first, my name one. If I save this, do you see anything different? Now it has started to implement few styles on that. Now I'll do this same for all input controls. I have to copy, not cut. I will just copy this one, go to the other control and do that with that one. Class is equal to control. For email, class is equal to form control. For date, class is equal to form control. Right? For position, again, I'm just doing that right regardless of anything. Later on, I can just change that as well. Right? And then you can do that for the text area as well, because text area will also become more beautiful. And then this file upload, again, as I said, we might be changing few things, but again, right now we are just giving it. So I'm not giving it to the side submit and button. Now, if you save your document, okay, so someone said beautiful. So do you think that now it has started to work something interesting for us? Now the form is starting to looking like a very, very interesting one. Why? Because now it is now showing us. If you go to iPad, you see that in iPad it is showing us something like this. So now it has started to look beautiful. Yes, you're right. And with only a single form, and we are not using a CSS, by the way. So keep in mind, we are like, again, our own CSS. We are not using our own CSS. Rather, what we are doing is that we are trying to use something from that one. So does everyone see this output in this way, which I am looking at it over here? Everyone can see that. So our form has started to look more and more professional, with only, as I said, with only few text implementations, with only few text, with only few CSS classes that we have implemented. So effectively, what we have done till now. So let me tell you, we have just implemented a class container, yeah, like in a div, and we have included everything inside that. And what we have done with every input control, I've used this form dash control, which is just changing this form control over there. So now let me just show you more options of form control. If you see that in form controls, this is text, this is disabled form. There are lots of things you can always go and check. And let me just show you that I wanted to show you, for example, this layout of the forms. Okay, let's grid. Okay, let me just see that from input, file input. I want to check file input. I can show you some options for the file input. You see here. So a default file input is something like this that we see over here. If you see, the default file input is coming like this one. If I want to change that one, so you see, if you want to change that one, you have multiple files input, choose file, and this one, and this is large input file, small input file, large input file. I want to show you that. So if you see that, what we need to do, we just need to do form control and form control LG. Another class I need to add that. So if I add this one and go here in my form, in my file control, right? So this is the file control where we are loading that file. So if you come here and just paste that form control LG, right? Open up the document and now save this one. You'll see the difference. So what has happened? The large box has come. The large box has appeared. Everyone can see that, but of course we don't want that. And there are lots of other options as well. If you want to go for the small one, we can just do that LG to SM. You see what we can do is that change this LG to SM, and it will go to the smaller size. You see, it has gone to the smaller size other than that one. So if you want to put that, but I don't want to do that. And there is another which was used in Bootstrap 4. Right now we are in Bootstrap 5. It was, I think, form control file. If I save that one, so it shows more or less like this form control. No, it's wrong type. It's here, form control file. It was. So you see that it is a bit different, which does not look that good. So but you can use what is that form control will evenly work for that. So if you want to implement any other thing, you can always go about that and you can change those particular things. You got everyone? Now what is remaining now? What is the remaining thing? These two buttons are coming very, stretching like it is, they're stuck to this stop, and as well as they are on the left side, and we have to implement that on the right side. So let's go to the button part first. Let's go to the buttons, and buttons will be in components. If you go in components and if you find buttons, you see that there are primary, secondary, success, ranger, warning, info. All these buttons have been previously designed for us. So what I want to do is that, for example, if I want to implement a button as BTN primary, this one, so I'll use this BTN primary in a button. If I go to this one, Control C. So before even just adjusting their size, what we want to do, I want to implement a class in it. First button. Okay, I need to have class. Class equal to BTN primary, right? So let me just show you when I save what will happen. So if I save this one, that's good. Now we don't need to implement so many so many things. What we can do is that we can just say that button the button primary, I want to use that one. And in the same way, if you see here, we have got class is equal to button secondary, this one, the secondary, or maybe let's take the success one. I'm taking this success button over here, and let me just change that one to the second button. Where is that one? It's here. So I want to implement a class over here of button success. So if I save that one, you see there's two buttons that appear, right? Now, one thing that, as I said, that they are on the left as well. First of all, we have changed the classes of these buttons. Now the buttons look more beautiful. And now what we want to do is that we want to just, adjust them and we want to align them. So for alignment, for layout alignment, and let me just find out, there is a flex over here as well in this. You remember we have talked about flex a lot. So there's a flex model over here as well in our document. So what it says that if you want to implement something in the flex, so you have to just make, for example, use dot flex row to set horizontal row direction in this one, or dot flex row reverse if you want to put them on the right side. You see here, and how do we use them? And what we need to do is that we will need to just implement this dot d slash flex. This is something that we can use to implement our classes. So let's copy this one, and I will not be using this one. Rather, I want to use this this for the reverse side. So let me just copy this from here, and I'll just change that. I'm copying this. Go to your form, and these two forms are inside this button class. Now I don't want this button class. You remember we have used this button class to manage them on our CSS, our own CSS. But here I'm giving it a class. I'll everything. So class equal to D, not inline flex. I want to make it. So what I want to do is that first of all, I want to do it D dash flex. So just change it to D dash flex. So it will become a flex, right? The flexible. And then if you see here, add this one, the second one, it says dot flex row reverse. It means by dot, it means it's a class. So I just copy this one from here, Control C, and I come here and I paste this one over here, flex row reverse, right? And I can show you the document as well. Now let's save this one. You see my buttons have gone that part. Everyone is following me because I have not taken a feedback from so long. I wanted to have a quick feedback. That's very good. That's very good. So now your form looks like more beautiful. One double quote is extra where. Oh, okay, no problem. So that might be affecting that as well. It's not affecting, but anyhow, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. So now we have got one, that one. So now I hope everyone is, that's very good. Everyone is following. Now another very important and interesting thing, which we will be just doing, margin. What is the type of margin? How we can use margins? Margin and padding is very easy in that. So you know the M is used for margin and P is used for padding. What does that mean? If you say, for example, you know, if you say that I want to have a margin and margin on top, so I will say MP, margin top. I can see margin bottom, margin. So you remember there is something called margin. We have already talked about that. So if you just use this margin in a class, that M, if you use that, it will just implement those different effects for us. Let me just show you the effects that we can implement. If you see what things we want to place margin on. So if you see that this text area is very much stuck into the position. So let's go to the text area. And here we have already defined a class, form control, right? What I can do is that I can give it a margin top, empty, of 2 pixels, empty-2. And where I am, please bear in mind, I'm inside text area and I'm inside this inside this class equal to, and I use empty-2. If you save this one, do you see any difference? Of course, 2 looks a bit less. If I do 3, do you see my difference? That now my text area has started to gone away from that. So now, if that is happening, can I do that with the button as well? Of course, yes. If I go here and say margin top equal to, margin top not equal to, margin top -3, empty-3. If I save this one, you see my buttons have come to the bottom, right? And these buttons are strict with each other. So it means, if you can anyone tell me what should I do? Of course, you know, if I come here, I'm not implementing any class over here. If I do class equal to, and I say, for example, let's check first of all margin 2. If I give it a margin 2, right? Okay. Oh, I'm using a class. I forgot that I'm using a class over here. So I will just use that one, right? We can implement 2 classes over here. So if I say margin overall, I'm just giving an overall margin to this, margin 2. So you see, it looks like a bit odd, or to say that it's going down. So let's do it margin right, -2. Okay. It's left. Is it left? Oh, it's not working. What should I use? Someone can help me out. ML-2. Margin left 2. Not working. Margin right 2. Okay. Margin left 2. I just give it a margin. Padding in div. What do you mean? Is that a question or your concern or something? I am not understanding what you are saying. Okay, now I've just implemented the margin instead of bottom. Okay, you say that we can implement the padding, but you know the padding. If you want to say that, for example, we can do that padding into this div, right? So you want to say that I can implement this padding. So if you will do that padding over here, if I do that, let's take out this empty and E-3 padding the 3. So you see what will happen. So inside that div, they will be stretched, like, you know, they will be squeezed to the. You remember that we have talked, and I remember you asked this question. So this div is basically a box around that, and if I do something like that, let me just select that one, and you'll see the difference. So now this is our div. So when we are doing that flex row reverse, if you see here, so if you just implement, if you are doing that padding means you are just including that space, that inside space. Are you getting that? So padding does not work. Basically, what we want is that we want to just make them separately. So you can do that by M2. So there are lots of options by using. So you can always go through all these options, and you will love to just work on that, all those options. Now, if you see our form, that form looks a bit more, presentable, bit more useful now. And what I can do over here is that I can change to different views areas. So if you see, if you will be looking at it in my mobile device, you will be doing something like that. You are working in iPhone. So iPhone is just setting down. Why? I'll have to just check that maybe here or something. Why it is not giving for the iPhone or something. So anyhow, we'll check that. But anyhow, so if you see here that it is basically providing us that same form. So you remember this form, we have only worked on few of the things. If you see that we have just implemented merely few classes, and now it is working so much good for us that it is now providing this option. Okay, so one of the things, if you remember that we had this list. So by default in Bootstrap 4, it did not support this list, and even this list did not used to appear. But what you can do, and there is no drop-down menu being shown over here. So if you want to make a drop-down menu, you can always make a select option and things like that. You have got those options with you. So this is the form that we wanted to use for, like, this is the thing that we wanted to use for the Bootstrap-like environment, and we wanted to see that how we can just change this to the non-responsive design. Like this is the normal website design what we have, and this normal website design will be basically acting over here. All right. So you can just look at it. Right. So I hope everyone has followed me, and I hope now you have got like a good sense of this Bootstrap. And I will be using this Bootstrap maybe in next week's class as well for some more effects over here. But of course, you have this all world open for this Bootstrap, and you can go there and find out this content, tables, how can you work on tables. So it will be just only a single clicks or single, values, and your tables and everything will be, interestingly going into that. So that's flex was in utilities. As I was saying, flex is in utilities. So you can just find that flex, and we can work on that flex values as well. Something like this. You remember space between, and then something like that. So there are space around content evenly. So these all can be done not by using your CSS, rather by using the CSS of Bootstrap. So I will just take a quick 10 minutes break here, and then when we'll be back, we'll be just discussing the client-side validations. That was the topic for our this week, and we'll be talking about this second slides after that, because we are done with some of the styling in Stack. Now we'll be talking about the forms validation and client side versus server side and client side examples and things like that. So be here with me, and I will be back after 10 minutes. Yes, thank you very much. So this one is, from that week 6, if you see, week 5, I think. I'll open that up, open that Econestoga. So this is one of the lecture file that we had to discuss, and I said you that I will be just discussing few of the related to the, the validations something, and that validation will play an important role in filling out the forms. And for your surprise, not the surprise, for your information, that half of it or most of it we have already discussed, and I'll tell you. I'll show you shortly. First of all, let me just tell you that where these slides you will find. Yes, you will find that in week 6 forms. So let me show you that. So week 6 form validation. So you can just go and find that over there, right? So these are the slides that we'll be looking at. And as I said, if I just quickly go from this point onward.
Can I ask a question before we start this?
Why not? Why not?
I was thinking, will using Bootstrap affect loading time of the website?
All right. So to answer this question, it's basically whenever we just add something, or whenever we just link something over here, You remember that usually we say that whenever you are linking to that, your document gets loaded, document gets into the system. So one way or other, if you say that if you have got a very huge amount of documents and huge amount of styling and things like that, that might affect it. But anyhow, because usually what we do is that rather than using our own CSS, always this was our own CSS, you remember that we usually import some things from the outside as well. So more or less, I don't think that it would affect that much on, it would have that much effect on your sizing or something. But the thing that you need to keep in mind are that you remember that issue of being using the scripts app, scripts always, or the scripts at the bottom, and then you can just use them. So basically, um, one way or other, what I can say is that usually it does not have that much effect on your website, and you can use either like Bootstrap or something. But either case, in most of the cases, you need to find out, you need to usually embed something from the outside. So, but keep in mind that one thing, that this style sheet will work as good as your own style sheet works when we are using our own apps, like relative style sheet. This absolute work will also work that fine. So I don't think there will be so much effect of that. And if I get something related to that, I'll just try to find out and I'll just share that with you if I find something related to this issue.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So now, as I was saying, that if you talk about, if you go from this slide number 18, maybe they are talking about the arrays. Of course, they are talking in the sense of the forms. I'll talk about that. But if you see that they've started the discussion on regular expressions from here. And you remember, we have already have a good sense of regular expressions. We have worked on regular expressions a lot, like in that file, if you remember, and that would be used over here in our form. So I'll give you an example towards the end where you can use those regular expressions to make up to make the some of the interesting things. Anyhow, so let's start this one, and we have got this forms and server applications. Now, client-side scripting for validation. So we can basically do what we can. That first of all, agenda. What is form validation, and how do we use that? And client-side versus server-side validations, and client-side examples we'll talk about. So we'll see that we can do validations on client-side and on server-side as well. So we experience these validations daily basis. On daily basis, we see them in most of the forms that you are filling out. It says that is required, that is not required, that is something. So we see that. So validation, ensuring that a form's values are correct. Why is that important? It's not only important because you want to have the right type of values. You remember, it's important because you have to usually save that data into your database, and database has a set type defined for the value set, format defined for the values. So sometimes users, they fill out the forms in a very wrong form. And if you have seen that regular expression lecture, if you remember, that in that I've talked about that usually, mostly, sometimes maybe write down a phone number with 500 by 10 spaces in between the area code and the main number. So you need to have that forms values are correct. Why? Because first of all, you want to see that, you want to have them proper format, because you have to take them to the database. So ensuring that form values are correct is the validation. What is that validation? Many different types of validations. Preventing values from being left blank. You have experienced it a lots of time when you are filling out a form. It says that it cannot be left blank. It cannot be left blank, something like that. So then preventing values from being left blank, and mandatory email. You want email definitely to be there. Not only email should be there mandatory, but rather email should be in the right format as well. There should be an @ in between. There should be a dot at the end. You need to check that one as well. Ensuring the correct value type is used. So whenever you are, like, someone is entering, the right type of data has been entered into the form. So basically, all these things, for this we do what? Form validation. Now, what is form validation? Many different types of validations. For example, ensuring the format for a value. Postal code should be in the postal code form. Email should be in the email form. Phone number should be in the phone number form, as I was saying. Ensuring the range of values. Student number in valid range. US postal code is 5 digits, or our postal code is of different format. So we have to just keep all these things in mind, and we want to We want to make that sure before putting up our data into our database. So ensuring different values match or correctly link, confirm email, confirm password, password does not contain username, etc., etc., etc. These all things can be checked, and you will see today that with very little code we can do all those things. So if you see here, they've given an example of this Amazon form, that registration. If you are registering something, so it will say that your email address has an invalid email address format, please correct and try again. So if you see that email address has been given DSASSB, something like that, and it is saying that your email address is not correct, sometimes in most of the cases you get a red asterisk that it should not be left empty, and things like that. So you can do all those things by using the validations. Validations will give you that name cannot be empty, email should have to be the right format. When you retype it again, you will be matching these two together, that whether they match or not. If they are not matching, you will just display a message they're not matching, and things like that. Mobile number should be in the right format. We have the area code, 3 digits, and then 4 digits, 3 digits, and 4 digits. So that is all. And the password, you want to implement some of the policies on the password. And if you see that we have got different types of validation. One is the client side and server side. So one validation is the client side. For example, you say that you have just given that client side validation, that password should match, for example. And when the password that they reach to the, for example, database or the server says that no, this password should not match, maybe somehow, but that's also something that we want to embed over here, and we don't want it to take that password to the database if that password is not according to our given requirement. Now the two approaches, server side and client side. These are the two approaches that we'll be using, and we'll be working on both of them. So server side, we have not talked about server side as such too much about it. Like again, as I said, I'll be starting coming week. We'll be starting PHP, the fun part. Performed after the form information is submitted by the user. So again, please keep in mind, this validation will be done when a form has been submitted to the server. It's not before that. So typically done using PHP. It's not rather only PHP. It is done by the server-side scripting languages, likes of PHP, likes of other server-side scripting that we have discussed a lots of times. It ensures high security. Again, it is done on server. So there is a concern of security is very high over here. Like again, it ensures that the high security is there because it's all done in server. Slower, of course. Why? Because user will fill that and send to the server, and then server said no, this is not correct, and do it right. So it looks like odd. It does not look that good, that professional, that it will be slower in that way. Why? Because on the network you will be sending your document, and then you're receiving the document, and that document will be coming back with a thing that your validation is not correct, your form is not correct, the data is not. So that's why people have started to enforce more and more client-side validation rather than server-side validation. Client-side, perform before the form information is submitted to the server. So how good it is? Even before server receives the information, you do that validation. Benefits, as I said, number one benefit, data will be in proper form. Number two benefit, database has defined predefined types of fields that they can store them. So that is also being done. So there are lots of things. Number three, your network is not loaded, like your form, your page is not going back to the server and then coming back and then going back and forth. So we are saving that from. So again, we do that before the information is submitted to the server. So even before sending to the server, we are trying to solve all those problems. Typically done using JavaScript. So in most of the cases, we use JavaScript to do that. And again, if you are using some other server side, like client side scripting language, you might use them. But JavaScript has becoming, as I said in the last class as well, it is becoming more and more prevalent over the others in the likes of PS6 and all things like that. So better user experience, faster, more responsive, avoid sending incomplete forms to the server. So basically, it has a better user experience and a faster one. And it's less secure. They're saying again, why? Because we are talking about the client side of the validation, and client side validation can be more prone to the errors rather than the server side. Which approach is the best one? Which is best? Depends on the situation. There is no one correct answer. Sometimes, most of the times, you will try to do client side, but sometimes you will say no. This server side is more appropriate in this situation. We don't want to check anything on the client side. Rather, we want them to send that to us, and then we just do the validation. So it's up to you, and it's up to the requirement what situation you are in, and you will be just doing that according to the situation. So Often a mixture of both approaches is best, provides convenience and security, but requires the most effort and skill. So again, sometimes or mostly people do what? They will implement some of the client-side validations, some of the server side. Can anyone give me an example where we will be just mixing both together? Why not just doing validation on the client first? Or maybe why not doing the client validation on the server overall? So what can be a mix of these two? Is there something that comes in your mind when we say that we'll be doing that mix of something? Client regex username and server password. Okay, that's good. That's a very good example. So username and the regular expressions you are using in the client side, and then of course password. It's a two-way validation type of something, maybe, for example. Yes, you're right. The password validation is one of the server side, because server or the database will have that password and will store that password. So maybe, and the password, when it reaches to server, it says that this is not the correct one, for example, to save over here. But again, and the password checking, more than validation, it would be a check authorization when user will be logging in. Any other example? Any other example that comes in someone's mind, right? So let's talk about that. So we will be just doing that mix of at different places. Those things which are coming from the database typically, and they do not. For example, you do not send those things to the client, as someone mentioned, the server password. So if you are not, of course, you will not be sending password to the client to check that, to compare that. So again, for those situations, you will be using the server side validation. Client side validation. We want the web browser to execute a client side form validation function before the browser submits the form values to the web server. So we want to have that again, web browser to execute a client side form validation. So we want to run a client side validation function, and that function will do what? It will just do all those validation concerns, and before the form submits to the values to the server. So before going to the web server, run a function, do all the validation at the client side, right? So form tag contains the helpful on submit event handler. So if preferred, if you want to use, there is a on submit event handler over here. So form on submit equal to, this is a weird syntax, and we'll talk about that. Return form validation function, something like that. So alongside the form, for example, if for example you say that you are using something like this, you also are saying that I want to use, for example, on submit. You see, on submit equal to, and what is that? If you see, you want to have return form validation function. By return means we can have any function. So you say that return form validation function. Let's take this name altogether, right? What does that mean? Now when someone will submit this form, and when I will just hit on the submit button, for example, if I hit on that submit button like that, this one like that, so what will happen is that there is a function that should run. Is that right? Form validation function. Now, where this function will be defined? Of course, can anyone tell me where can I define this function? In the JavaScript, of course. I'll be doing that in the JavaScript. So we have a JavaScript here connected, but this is a JavaScript of that one. So let me just connect here our own script src equal to, and I will call it myscript.js, right? I will be calling a myscript.js. So I'm connecting this document with myscript.js, which is not here. I will run that, and I'll do myscript.js. So I've added a file over here, right? I'm side by side running that. So what does they do? Let's discuss that. When using the on submit event handler, the keyword return should always be used. It will always use the return keyword. And why? If the form validation returns true, the browser submits the form to the web server. So if return, again, this form, it returns a true, then the form will be submitted. If the form is not, if it is returning a false, like it is a false value. So if it is a false value, the browser does not submit the form to the web server. It will keep stopping the form before submission. It will say, no, I cannot allow you to submit. Why? Because you are receiving a false. Now, form validation function is returning the false. Let's talk about that separate more. If return is omitted, the event handler calls the form validation function, submits the form to the web server regardless of the value that function returns. So if I just take out this return from here, so what it happens, it will run that one, but whether it returns a true or a false, any case it will just send the data, right? So if return is omitted, so what we do is that we use basically we use basically what, that we do not omit our return, rather we will be using that return. So when using the onSubmit event handler to call from a validate function, the function must be structured so that it tests whether multiple different error condition exists. So of course it will be just checking all those condition errors. So how if else if should be used to test multiple error conditions. You can use if else if in our form, and that would be using each condition to test if a specific error condition is true if it has occurred. So if there is some error, we'll be using if and else. You like something like that? You know, you are familiar with this JavaScript code, and I'll do that and I'll run that and you show. So if you see that if condition 1 is true, and for example return code to run if the condition 1 is true and condition 1 is false and condition 1 is false and condition 2 is false. So again, this is one chained if example over here, and we'll run that. Usually want to issue a return statement within the if, we'll be issuing a return statement, right, as a true or a false, depending on what if is checking. So whatever if is checking, we can just do that. Okay, one thing, HTML5 increase the client-side validation ability of input tag. It's a very interesting fact. What is that? There is, as I if you remember, I told you this is something called a required, and we have used that. It looks like I used that with you people. I don't remember, but anyhow, I'll use that. So if I do it equal to not form, this one, did I do required? No. So after this tab index, I'm doing required, just required. You don't need any value for it. So if I do that required, and if I run my file, right, and if I try to submit that, you see it is giving an automatic message, fill out this field. I have not used this validate function as yet, but it's doing that. Why? Because required will do that. In the same way, with required, there is a pattern, and this is same pattern matching. I'll be using that in the example today. Input element value is checked against the regular expression. So you know regular expressions, how they work. And there are these two validations that we can technically use, and that will make our, so again, what is the difference if I delete this one, required from my input, and if I try to run, if I try to submit this form, so you see that it is submitted. Submit means the next page is coming. But if you see that whenever I'm mentioning it required over here, saving that, and if I submit this form now, it is saying no, you cannot send this form. So it's stopping that. So it is the required which is doing that. So again, I can do that required as well, but I'm not using required. Why? Because we are looking into that validate function. So JS validation, you have got these links. You can always go through these links and find out those interesting things. So see here they have just given a function code. So I will just copy this one and paste it in our script file, right? So let me just copy this, Control C, and I will paste that in my script, right? Because I've connected my script over here. But you see, the function name here is what? Validate form, right? So I am not using validate form, rather I am using form validation function, right? So I'll have to use the right. So what is the name? I'll just copy it from here so that you are safe from this hassle. Right. So return, and I want this to return validate form. And let me see if it is returning the right values. So you see here what it is doing. Okay, and let's check it first, and then if it runs, then we'll be discussing that. So I'm not giving any value to it, and if I press add, insert, it is going. Why is it going? That's good. Okay, I'm using the right form. I have done in the right file. Good. Am I using the right file? MyScript.js is the right file over here. Am I doing something validate form? Okay, that's good. That's good. What is that? What is wrong here? Of course, I'm using all this code, and I'll have to change that code according to what is that. Let's discuss that, and I'll change that code accordingly, right? Because I'm taking that code from the slides, and it's not matching my form. So you see that validate function is doing what? I'm just making it a bit big so that you can see. You see here, validate form is a function var x is equal to document.forms. right? It is accessing, yes, exactly. It is accessing the forms from our document structure, our DOM. It is accessing those forms. And in that form, it is accessing my form. So, one thing that I need to do, can anyone tell me? Of course, someone is already helping me out. I need to give this form a name. If I have not given so, I need to give this form a name. And according to my code, because I'm going the reverse direction, according to my code, what name I'm giving? Is my form, right? So I'm saying it is my form. First things first. I hope everyone is with me. That's things first. I've named this my form because this document.forms will go to my document and find out all the form elements. So the form element that it finds, and let me just close this one and close this one. So when it goes over here, it tries to find out the forms. It will say that there are lots of forms over here, maybe. So it says that, okay, one of the form, its name is my form. So it will grab that my form. I hope everyone is getting that. Okay, in that form, it is looking for a field. Now, let's come back here. What is the field that I want to access from here? First name. And what is the name of that field? We'll be accessing this from here with the name. I told you that both of these things use. We can use this ID as well. Let's use that ID for that particular thing. Or maybe just use the name, because this is using this array-like structure. So I will be using first name. So you see here, I come here and I'll do first name. Got everyone? Go to the document, find out all the forms. Out of those forms, you'll find a form which name is my form, and there is a field in that first name with the name first name. If you see, there is a field first name with the name. I'm using this name property, not ID, right? And come here, save this one. Let's save this one, and that if I need something else as well. My form.
Professor, you are using camel case in your script, but not in.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So, okay, so I'm using camel case here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And let's submit that. Now you see here, this is alerting. You see here what it is doing? We are accessing that form field. And after accessing, we are checking that if it is equal to null or it is equal to nothing. Like again, user is not giving anything. So what we need to do is that we need to alert it over here. It is alerting. I cannot allow you to run unless you fill something. So if I fill something, anything, whatever, I'm not checking this number or something. So it is now sending my data. All right. So what I want to say here, if you have got multiple forms in your page, for example, if I just come here and let's make another form after this div, maybe just for nothing. I use the form and action is equal to whatever data and method equal to that, and then the name equal to, yes. So name equal to, I'm saying second form, and right now I'm very carefully doing it as a camel case, right? So this is a second form which has nothing but an one input and nothing else, right? Let's save that one. So we'll have a one very odd little form over here. Now anyhow, so this form name is the second form, right? So now when you access document.forms, now you will have two forms available over here, right? And that we can just usually check that as well. So let me just show you over here, or maybe just here. So let's check it. And what is the name that I've given to the next form? It's second form, right? In camel case, second form, right? And what is the field name? I've not given any field name. I think to the input, I've not given it any name. So name is always important, and I give it right, just for the sake of it. So what I want to do here, that now it will access document.forms. All the forms will be accessed, and it will just go and take out this any value. And I'm not submitting it, so it won't work, and I'm not. So what is that? Document.forms has all the forms that you want to display over here. These are all the forms will be running over here, and we can always look at that, right? So this document.forms and the form name and the field name dot value, the value will come inside that x, and now you are checking that value. You can check x dot length equal to, you can do that type of thing. Let me just do Control Z and check one more thing. So first name. I have that. I'm just using that same one. And if I do that, it is just checking name must be filled out. Or maybe you know what you can do is that you can just check, for example, not for the null. If you say that, let me just make it comment and just check out if x dot length, right, x dot length is less than 6, right? So then do something. And let's do the same thing. Alert name not right of right length. Just anything you can just display. Not of right length, and then return false. Okay, we are just returning a false. So we are checking that x dot length should be equal. It should be less than or equal to. Okay, I'll check that. I'll check that why it is not showing. Let me first see that is it working or not. So I'm just giving, for example, 2 letters A B, and now run that function. So name not of the right length. So because the length is less than 6. So again, if I do that 6 more than 6, so my name is now of more than 6. If I just run that, it is now submitting the data. Okay, so let me just stop sharing for a minute and let me discuss with you. So we have got this form where we are using this validate form function, and you know that we don't only we can use this form function in the different ways as well. One of the way we are using here is on submit method over here. But what we can do over here is that we can just get the reference of the forms over here and implement an on submit over there. You remember we have talked about that add event listener over there, or maybe on submit event you can do a lots of things with that form. So you have got this now to play with it, and you can always put out a message to the user that you don't want, or that the typical input box is not in the right format. So referencing form elements. Your form elements on an HTML page are stored within an array. So you see that array. So that array we have used here. So you see that associative array where there is a key value pairing. So I'm using this f name value. So f name will bring up the first name value, and the second name, third name, whatever the value fields you have. So they are all stored in an array. So array is a data structure which we know very well. We know that what is the array creation. I'm just quickly going that because I want you to just have a look all these things by yourself. So referencing form elements that we have done. So you can access forms by using document.forms. And as I said, you can access them by using 0 or by using the name of the form. You see, I gave you an example. You can use this one, or you can use something like this if you want. Form 0. So whatever form is first, it will just bring up that form and it will work on that one. So it's another way, or the other way is that you can use that associative name, my form, or whatever name you have given. So that the forms are also collected in that the array form. So this forms of 0, forms of 1. These documents array are useful in writing JavaScript commands to systematically examine all objects in a document form. So you can work on this JavaScript a lots of times. Something like this we have done. So value we have had to find, and you have to define that value to some particular value. Many approaches for validating depending what you want to do. One of them is the regular expression, and as I said that we have talked about regular expression a lot. And now if you see here that, for example, you have this strictly equal. These are all 0 equals false, and 0 equals false. It is not true. You remember strictly equal, strict type conversion. So it does not do the type conversion whenever you have the 3 equal. Now I think you will be very much easy with that. So again, which one is best depends on what you are doing. Strict type conversion. So usually you need to look at your requirement. That if you think that it does not matter if the data is different, you will be using double equal. So 0 equal to false. In our real life, we might say that 0 equal to false is the correct one. But strictly speaking, you say that no, 0 is not equal to false. 0 is 0 and false is false. So data type should not be converted before checking it. So you can always look at the ways where you want to use. If you want to do something like that, you will be doing that. So again, if you see that here string 0 equals false, it's true because these are both are generally considered as a string. But if you see here that if you go to the data type, it will be showing the false value. So which one is best is again according to your need, depends on what you are trying to do. Strict can be less confusing. Strict can be faster. So strict will be faster means again it will be just checking out each and everything. So a regular expression defines something. I'm just taking this something, and why something, because I know that you people are already familiar with all these things. We have discussed that. We have got a video related to that, like lecture recorded over there, which you can use. And these are all the escape characters that we use in our pattern matching and regular expression pattern matching. You remember that we have these functions to do: re.test, re.toString, re.whatever. So we are all those strings that we can use. So you can find those more information in W3 schools and these regular expression testers. You remember one of them we used. This is the other one, regex 101, and we use the other one. Let me just see that which one they are using. This is regex 101, and here also we can just check any of the regular expression if you want to check. For example, if I say, for example, backslash dot and for example, I say question mark, square bracket, A to Z, and capital A to Z, dash Z, A dash Z, capital A dash capital Z, right? So can anyone tell me what type of regular expression it will become? What it will recognize? Can anyone write what it will recognize? Because we have already gone through this a lots of time. Like again in that video. Can anyone tell me what type of values it will accept? Yes. Anyone? Can anyone tell me what it will do? Only alphabet length 6. Length 6. That's good. So let me just stop for because I want to. Right. So what we have done is that we have given this pattern, this same pattern that we were talking about over here, which will accept a dot and 3 letters after that. So now if you want to make that happen, you will just come here, and as I said, I will just remove that requirement from the first one. Just put that one. I'll do that then later. So now if I give dot exe, it would be accepted, right? But if I give something which is more than 3 letters, if I just go do that, it will say please match the requested form. Or if I don't place a dot, I can place 3 letters. It will accept 3 letters. Why? Because we have given this as a question mark. So I think now it is your you have got the repeating of that one, and I would like you to look at the regular expression video once more, because I've only got response from 2 people over here. Okay, so this very much sums up for today. I will be just stopping here. It's something, the client side validation we have talked about. Now we'll be talking about server side validation. Next week we'll be talking about PHP, and like that we'll be coming to the server side technology, and that would be a very interesting part of it. And yes, so let's see what happens. And I have that in mind, that people asked the extension for the assignment. I have asked, and maybe I'll just extend that for maybe 2 or 3 days more, not more than 2 days. So please keep your fingers crossed. I might extend it to 223, 24, but not more than 2 to 3 days. Please bear in mind, right? So thank you very much, and I am stopping now recording.